Welcome, everyone, to episode 47 of Masters of the Forge. My name is Adam, and with me is the great, the singular, the undeniably awesome...
And undeniably Norwegian.
Yes.
Snorre. Yes, I'm here.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
Things in my life is finally starting to look bright again. You know, there's been different things that have been getting in my way, and you know, things are starting to look good again.
Nice.
So,
where'd you bury the bodies?
Most of them in my backyard.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, that's...
as long as the people who own the house where I rent don't start wondering why there are bumps in the lawn and just like mow over it until it's level again, I'm fine.
Yeah, as long as they don't put an in-ground pool in, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I am not sick this week. Yay! So
Hooray!
excited to not be gross. Well, I'm still gross, but not super gross. Yay!
Yeah, it's good to hear that you're actually having your voice back again, not just like... Bleh.
Yeah, oh my god, it was the worst. So, man, it is an exciting time, I think. Dude, Gene Stealer cults? What?
Yeah, I got the email yesterday, and it was like, amazing new boxed game. And I knew, of course, it was going to be the Gene Stealer Death Watch thing, but I looked at it as like, I'm so buying this. I still haven't assembled, or like, I don't think even I've taken the plastic off my Assassinorum Death Squad, or whatever it's called. It's still on the shelf in the storage room, but, you know, I'm promising myself I'm going to get to that. But then Games Workshop releases another board game that looks super awesome. So I was like, okay, I'll pick that one up, hopefully, very soon, and then maybe I'll get around to the Assassinorum game and assemble and paint that stuff, and then maybe the Death Watch one. Games Workshop is... But if you ask me, it seems like Games Workshop is starting to go a little bit away from the whole Warhammer 40,000 as a tape measure and dice game to more of a board game kind of thing. It's like focusing a little bit more on the board gaming to get more people interested in the universe. Mm-hmm. And also, I think that designing board games for easy games is a lot better than having this super complicated couple of 100-page rule book. Well, technically the rules are probably the first 100 pages or so. But still, there's a lot of rules in 40K, and you can just skip those and still have fun in the 40K universe with a board game. I think it's a good move.
I think it's, first of all, super smart. And they are just absolutely giving us what we want at every turn. They're giving us Gene Stealer cults. They're giving us Mechanicus. They've started to release these paperback codex supplements at a much less expensive price point. They are just pardon my French, but they are crushing it right now. They're making all the right decisions. How about the extremely good deals on those army starter boxes? Have you seen the prices on those?
I haven't really looked at them because why would I want to buy a get started box?
Yeah.
Because I have everything I need. So, you know, they've gone under the radar. But if you say so, I need to check out the percentage saved because I guess it's significant.
It is stupid significant. Like in some cases, like 30 to 50%. And my store still offers 25% off all GW. So if I were to buy one of these boxes, I'd be practically getting it for like even less than half off.
Yeah, like 30% of what it would cost. Yeah.
And some of them aren't like super competitive choices, but that is meaningless. Like the guard one is 10 guys, a tank, and a commissar. With like a heavy weapons team in there for the squad, and it's like $85. That is insanity. The Tau one is like, if you look at the Tau one and price it out, it is unreal. So I am really, and some people would say, well, that's how the prices should be anyways. Like, no, that's not the price it should be. That is a quite a low margin item, but that's what they need to do. They need to get people into it, and they're, like you say, Snorre, that's what they're doing. And I think that I hope that the numbers at the end of the day, I hope the numbers work out for them.
Yeah,
because this is what we've been saying that they should be doing for a long time, and I hope that it works, because then that will prove that it does work, and we'll see more of this kind of business decision in the future.
Yeah, and it almost feels a little bit like the drug pusher cliche that, get them hooked for free and then jack up the prices. But, if they want this whole miniatures hobby to survive, they have to do something like this. Make it affordable to get in, and then, okay, prices will be higher, but then you can start cherry-picking the things you want, the specific parts you want. And if you just want to bulk up your army, you can just buy a bunch of these starter boxes, because you can always use the stuff in them for something. If you're playing super competitive, you're just going to shelve some of it, but, fluffy gamers, we will gladly play with everything because, well, have fun.
Yeah, and I think once you get into it, you realize that I think the problem was that people who hadn't gotten into it yet, and I see this at the store a lot, assume that the hobby is too expensive to get into. And we're talking people who like play War Machine and people who play Magic the Gathering, and I'm just thinking to myself, dude, you have no idea how comparable the pricing is with Warhammer. It's very comparable.
Yeah, if you're playing Magic the Gathering and you think 40k is expensive, then you're probably not playing Magic the Gathering very well. Yeah, considering that you can only play with the last, 3 sets that they release. That means that within 2 years or so, your entire collection is out of date. So Congratulations, you're spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on cards that are now completely null and void. I still have thousands
a beautiful army.
Yeah, exactly. I have thousands of dollars worth of miniatures, and I can still play with them 10 years later. Hooray!
Yeah, you win. So, hey, Snorri, specifically, what have you been up to?
Not a whole lot, because, I've had a lot of other things in, like, real-life things that needed to be taken care of in these last couple of weeks. But I did
Mastering the A10 Warthog?
Yeah, that's one of them. But,
nice.
Since this is the episode where we do the I Am Slaughter, I had to finish the book, of course. So I did that. And hooray, I did something that has to do with 40k, because most of the time, as Adam just mentioned, I've been flying the A10 Warthog in this flight simulator that I'm playing. So a couple of weeks ago, I signed up for a cadet position at a virtual fighter wing here in Europe for the flight simulator that I'm playing. And these guys take things really seriously, but it's still about enjoying the game. So, it's kind of like what we do, only it's in flight simulators, not in 40K. But, in the last couple of weeks, I've learned so much stuff about the A10 that I didn't know before. And it really has pushed my understanding and my enjoyment of the flight simulator to a whole new level. Just like 40K, after you play it for a while and start to learn the rules properly. So, I'm seeing less time spent on 40k and more time playing this flight simulator, but I still can't put down my brush.
Good.
So I don't play much in terms of games anymore, but or as in 40k games, but I still do pick up the brush every now and then because, I have a Renegades army I want to both build and paint. Even if it's just going to sit on a shelf and look cool, I'm still going to assemble and paint it. So that's pretty much what I've been doing the last couple of weeks.
Cool. Yeah, I'm, I've been spending the past month working on this big infantry project. I'm working on about 40 cultists for a buddy, and I'm doing 36 Digas models for the infantry for that project. I've done all the color blocking, and I did all the washes, so now I'm ready to do highlights and touch-ups. So it's getting really close to the end of the month as of this recording, so I'm going to actually work on finishing up the Diggas first. That way I can make my Hobby Progress Challenge goals. I think that's kind of what I need to do, and then I'll finish up the cultists later in the week. As far as the Hobby Progress Challenge goes, it's still going strong. We have a great deal of people signed up, especially with the announcement that the independent characters are returning. I think that has kind of helped things a bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really pleased that the 1 hour a night Facebook group is involved in the Hobby Progress Challenge. We have some extra achievements in the Hobby Progress Challenge for involving yourself in the 1 hour a night Facebook group, where people kind of post daily to get motivation from others. It's a pretty nice setup. We've got a lot of great people on there trying to do it just a little bit every night and to get their hobby projects done. It's not just an hour a night. It's 365 hours a year. Everything adds up. If you take that little bit of time every day to do the work, you're gonna see a huge improvement in your finished models. Getting that giant stack of gray plastic dwindled down to something that you can be proud of. So check it out.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll be able to participate, Snorri?
No, not really. It's difficult to find the time, really, because when my girlfriend's up and about, then I spend most of my time with her, and the free time I have is either for podcasting or flying, really. So sometimes I sit up early in the morning and do a little bit of painting while I wait for her to wake up. But, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I have a buddy who actually, he's got a couple kids, and he doesn't have a lot of time. And he actually has his paints in the kitchen. In his family, he cooks. So the only time he has to paint is while he's waiting for something to boil or waiting for something to bake. So that's what he does. He sits in the kitchen and he just opens up a pot of paint and starts painting something. And then when dinner's ready, he puts it away, and that's his time. So everybody has the time that they have, right? And there's nothing right or wrong about it.
Yeah.
So I should say that I was on an episode of the It Will Not Die podcast. They wanted to talk about the new Gazgul supplement, and I played a couple of games using the new rules with Sound Doctor Jason, and they were some fun games. I think the Codex is going to really help orcs quite a bit. Obviously, from a competitive standpoint, orcs are still not going to be the number one army, but I think they're going to be a lot better. Plus, they really feel more orky using this supplement in some ways. So I really recommend all our orc fans checking it out.
Yeah.
I'll probably be using it a lot in my narrative games going forward. As folks know from the last episode, Wadril Teef is going to kind of be taken over a little bit by another warlord, and I'm certain that warlord is going to be a war boss of some kind who's in control of a large horde of orcs, and like a real bully of an orc, really. And I think that the Gazgul supplement actually really represents that very well. So I think I'm gonna take some of the stuff in here and use that to craft the story going forward, at least for the next year or so. So that'll be cool. And I've also been finalizing my England plans. Carl and Jason from and also Jason from the Overlords have both contacted me, finalizing some of the plans, making sure I've got all my T's crossed and I's dotted, and I think we're getting close to ready to just pull the trigger on this one. It's only a few weeks away.
Yeah, speaking of that whole going to salute, I'm not coming. It's just not possible for me to make it this time. So that's really unfortunate, but, real life stuff happens.
You rolled a 1, dude.
Well, no wonder I failed.
All right, cool. I think that's good enough. I think we should close this off here. We have a wonderful episode ahead of us. The Beast Arises. I Am Slaughter. It was a good read, and we had a pretty good time talking about it. I hope you guys like this format that we started using in this episode for our book reviews. I'm sure I forgot things about it, but
yeah, but it turned out to be a pretty free-flowing conversation just about the book. So, enjoy it.
All right, stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
At the It Will Not Die podcast, we focus on narrative gaming that brings your tabletop to life.
Join us every 2 weeks for campaigns, reviews, and interviews from around the world and across the hobby.
And remember, it doesn't matter how you love the hobby.
Just do it.
Nailed it.
Hey, Masters of the Forge listeners, are you looking to expand your Warhammer 40,000 gaming group?
Do you want to start a 40k club in your area?
Do you want the people you attract to be like-minded mofos?
Do you want to advertise your YouTube channel?
Or even attract more subscribers to your hobby blog or online community?
Then what better way than to advertise on the Masters of the Forge podcast?
All we ask of you is that you email us at mastersoftheforge@gmail.com or message us on Facebook with a full text of your advertisement, including the region in which you live and any contact information people can use to get a hold of you.
We will have one of our many tech servitors read your advertisement on the air. We promise not to make fun of you.
Though we can't always predict the actions of our servitors, you really can't find good help these days.
No, you can't. So, welcome back. We're going to dive right into our conversation about the plot of the book, A Beast Arises. I Am Slaughter by Dan Abnett.
Yeah, and in case you haven't really heard it already in the episode, like 15 times, spoiler warning, okay? Spoiler alert.
All the spoiler warnings.
Yes.
Yes. So this book is, well, it mainly takes place on 2 locations. The planet of Artamantur or
Artamantia,
whatever. Artamantia.
Yeah, something like that.
You can tell that we listened to the audiobook. On the planet Artamantua and on Terra. I think it really bounces back and forth quite a bit.
A lot, actually.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. So I think let's talk in depth about like what went on Artamantua, like for the first like third or half of the book, and then we'll move on to what was kind of going on Terra at the same time.
Yeah.
So it involves the Imperial Fists versus an unknown Xeno species called the Chromes, which I guess they're called that because they have like really silvery chitinous armor. You kind of get the idea that they're Tyranids, right, Snorre?
Oh yeah, they are very Tyranidy in their description, but at the same time, I was getting this really strong feeling that maybe there's some inspiration coming from the Horus Heresy books, because the first time you meet the Emperor's children, in the Horus Heresy series, they're stuck on a planet called Murder because they're getting murdered. And Eidolons, they're being a total dick, and they're getting rescued by the Sons of Horus. And the beasts on Murder are described as sort of a metallic, spidery being that just completely annihilates Space Marines.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah,
that was just like, this kind of seems like a cross between the arachnid things on Murder and Tyranids.
Or the arachnid things on Murder are Tyranids. You never, the way that they are able to like change their form and the way they can, they steal the genes. You never know. So basically we have the Imperial Fist. Now the Imperial Fists, I've never read anything with the Imperial Fists in it before, and I thought this was a really great kind of lens into their psyche and how they are. I'm not sure how it compares to their kind of like combat doctrine and their psychology today. It seems pretty close. At this point, they're mainly the Defenders of Earth. And I know that today they're the Defenders of Earth as well, right? So that really hasn't changed much. But these guys actually like defend the Imperial Palace personally.
Yeah.
And they hold the walls there. And I thought it was really cool. Like they name all their companies after the walls they're supposed to defend.
Yep.
And then they have an elite company where each individual person is named after the wall they defend. Like everybody has a wall name, and that's usually earned by their deeds. But that seventh company is named after the wall they defend. I thought that was interesting. They're so into this idea of defense and protection and protecting the emperor and everything that. It kind of permeates their culture.
Oh, yeah. There's one thing, by the way, when we're talking about whole defending the Imperial Palace and everything. This happens after the Horus Heresy, but is most definitely not 40K.
Right, yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know
mention that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when this book sort of takes place, but it's most definitely not in the last days, because as we get to later, the Imperial Fists are in deep trouble in this book.
Yeah, it's the 32nd millennium, I think. 32nd. Yeah, it's not long after the heresy. Well, I mean, 2,000 years is actually kind of a long time. But
yeah, but yeah, it's not exactly current day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really does date itself. There's a few points in the book where the author describes the helmets as being beaked. So they're definitely wearing like Mark 6 armor in this book. So this is all very dated, very very rogue tradery stuff going on here. So in the beginning we have a couple characters. Captain Corland, his wall name is Slaughter. Apparently he slaughters dudes. And we have Magos biologist Laurentis, and he's there to kind of, at least in the beginning, Laurentis is there to kind of help us understand the chromes, what they can do, and kind of guide us into understanding what's going on, or distract us from what's going on, really, right?
Yeah. And his analysis of the chromes seemed to be, these are kind of mindless worker bees. These aren't really bred for combat and everything, so they're kind of harmless. Yeah,
he likens them to rats.
Yeah.
Which, there's one point where he describes this time when he and some other tech adepts had to clear a hive of a rat infestation, and even though they weren't really all that dangerous on an individual level, when they started burning the basements, the rats swarmed and killed a whole bunch of people just in a swarm, you know.
Yeah,
Like, well,
out of desperation.
rad rats, right? Like super duper hive rats. But regardless, he just talks about how they're just dangerous in numbers and really not a great threat to the Imperium as a whole.
Yeah, and this Magos biologist is also having a real hard time remembering the names of all these Imperial Fists because there's not that many of them, but they have fancy names and all, and
they're all wearing armor and helmets, so it's
Yeah.
like, oh hey guy.
exactly. So Slaughter just tells him it is Slaughter, right?
Yeah, Slaughter.
Yeah. So Slaughter just tells them that, don't worry about my actual name. Remember my wall name, because that's what everyone else calls him. And
Yeah, that's
also,
what matters to them. Their deeds.
Exactly. And also, it's almost like they put their actual name behind them once they get their wall name, because they stop being an individual and they are now the wall.
It's really as the battles go on, you start to notice a different type of chrome showing up. It's got like black armor instead. They're a lot bigger. It takes instead of it taking 1 or 2 shots or swings to kill it, it takes 3 or 4 swings to kill it. And I think this is a really cool point where Slaughter is like, why didn't they commit these troops in the beginning?
Yeah.
Because they would have been able to blunt their attack a lot more. And then he realizes, oh, hey, no, these are us. These chromes have saved their best troops to defend the hive.
Yeah.
So it's basically like the Imperial Fist defending Terra. Like, we save our best. And these Imperial Fists definitely think that they're the best chapter. Like, there's no question about it. They really think they're the best. And so he instead of telling everybody, this is stiff resistance, we need to fall back. Instead, he realizes, oh wait, no, we're at the end here. This is their last ditch effort. We're gonna win this.
Yeah.
We're gonna win this thing. Let's push harder.
Yeah, the worker bees they've been fighting so far have been pretty much like the Imperial Guard. They are endless in number and not too well equipped or anything, but in large numbers they seem to do the job. And then suddenly they're up against the equivalent of Space Marines. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you do get the impression that this is going to be over soon.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Then the wrench in the works are these broadcast bursts of noise. Which seems to agitate not only the Space Marines and the humans, but the chromes as well, which is really, really interesting. Now, Laurentis tries to contact the fleet in orbit because he does not like what he hears. He's thinking that the chromes are trying to communicate with them. And it would be a really useful thing to be able to analyze it, but he needs more equipment.
Yeah, and they know that the chromes are all over this sector, but they have yet to find any kind of space transport that they can use to actually move around. So the Magos biologist kind of comes up with an idea. Maybe these guys actually have some kind of a warp capability or to sort of teleport or something, because he can't explain how they get around.
Yeah, and it's like, if they can communicate, what else can they do, right?
Yeah. Is this a call for reinforcements?
Right, yeah. Are they at first he's like, oh, maybe they're trying to surrender because it looks like they're on their back foot at first, right? And at this point, this is when the gravity situation gets a little weird on Artemanchur. Up in orbit, the starships start having some issues. One of the main ships actually suffers a catastrophic event inside their engines. The captain Aquilinia tells the Space Marines on board that they need to get off the ship immediately before they lose their. So Laurentis contacts the fleet, where he eventually gets a hold of Chapter Master Miron. Chapter Master Miron is on the Anquilon, which is one of their strike cruisers, captained by Captain Aquilinia. He convinces the chapter master to send down like a supply drop so he can have the materials he needs to do these to do the translations of the language that he believes the Chromes are using. The chapter master Miron is pretty interesting. They describe him as a very angry man, but like a tactical genius, and like they say that there are a lot of tactical geniuses in the Imperial Fists, and that Miron was chosen to be the chapter master because of his bad temper. Which is really interesting. He seems really smart, and one of the things I really like, one of the quotes from this book, which I find very interesting, is Miron's belief system, especially in regards to like maybe what an Ultramarine would say, which is "no plan survives contact with the enemy," which is an old saying. His response to that is, well, then you're probably using the wrong plan. Which is awesome. I love that.
There's a bit of hubris there.
Yeah, well, and but what he's referring to is the Imperial Fists have contingencies. They're very much like the Tau in that way, where they kind of have a general plan of action and contingencies that fire off if that plan doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. But at this point, some what they refer to as non-Euclidean gravity effects start assaulting the fleet.
And I'm not a physicist, so what the heck are those?
So I know that non-Euclidean geometry is kind of the phrase people use to describe some of the things that happen in mythos stories, in Cthulhu stories. So I'm wondering if what they mean by non-Euclidean gravity effects is stuff having to do with the warp, like something like that. This should not happen, right? This should not be happening, and the Anquilon suffers a catastrophic anchor point failure, which again, I think I mean, if the spaceship lover in me, I really think that this is an interesting point. All the time, these spaceships are falling out of the sky, right? Which I know it shouldn't bother me, but it does, because spaceships that are in orbit shouldn't fall out of the sky. They should just continue to orbit. It's just a thing that should happen. Yeah. And this makes me think that there's something very different going on with these Imperial ships. I don't think they're actually orbiting. I think that they have anchored themselves somehow to a point above the planet, and they don't actually speed along at a high rate of speed. I think they're actually stationary above the planet. There's something that causes, like this gravity effect causes that whatever engines they use to do that to fail, and they're at risk of falling out of the sky.
That's also what I was thinking of. If there's some kind of a gravity thing happening in space, then if it happens between the planet and the ship, then if they're in a geostationary orbit, then suddenly they have more gravity, which means that all their calculations are wrong, and now they need to correct. But maybe they aren't capable of correcting it fast enough.
Right, yeah, that's entirely possible. At this point, Aquilinia but she strongly suggests that the Space Marines get off the ship, because she really thinks that the ship is going to crash into the planet. So they do get off, and the ship is able to kind of back off and get into a higher orbit and start repairing itself. But it's at that point that a battle barge explodes. The fleet starts dying.
And if I remember correctly, the description sounds a lot like something is teleporting in. At least that's what their sensors are saying.
Yeah, they're not sure. They're wondering if they don't know what these gravity effects are, and there's clearly nothing there. My initial thought was that there's some kind of, you know how the Tyranids use, they actually use gravity to warp from one planet to another. They actually use the other planet's gravity and lens it towards the fleet that's coming in. If I recall our episode on space travel, so that's kind of what I thought when I was reading this.
Yeah, and one of the problems that they get is suddenly something teleports into the engine compartment, and suddenly they're leaking radiation into space.
Yeah, it was like a bubble of gravity, which compromised the engines.
Yeah, and that's never good.
No. So at that point, down on the planet, Laurentis is under attack, and he's saved by Slaughter. With the Chromes putting up a bunch of resistance, these gravitic bombs going off all over the planet, which are killing Space Marines and Chromes equally, might I add. They're in a pretty tough spot. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to hold out for long.
Yeah, this is really taking them by surprise, and also they don't really have a solution for it.
No, and they're very surprised to see the ship deaths as the ships all fall from space. They're just a raining debris onto the planet, and it's a kind of a hopeless moment.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that being stranded on a strange planet and just seeing that pretty much all your transports are just dying one by one, that's like, how am I going to get home?
Mm-hmm.
Should we mention just how many troops have been deployed for this?
Oh, yeah, how many people just died in space? Right now, most of the Imperial Fists have been engaged in this.
Oh, yeah, right.
In this action, because on Terra, they couldn't get the fleet and the Astra Militarum to agree on helping with this mission. Without the fleet, without the fleet, the Astra Militarum can't do anything, and without the Astra Militarum, the fleet is basically it can't do any ground operations. And getting those politics to work together was kind of too hard, so they sent almost the bulk of the Imperial Fist to take care of the problem.
Yeah, that's mainly because this chrome infestation in this area, it seems to be heading towards Earth, and it's only a few weeks out. So if they didn't just crush this, then it would be sort of like the defense of the Golden Palace all over again, only with nasty aliens.
And Miron, it wasn't hard to get Miron to agree to it either. When the plan was brought to him, he agreed immediately because the Imperial Fists need an opportunity to show that they're useful. And there's been a lot of peacetime. There's been a horrible outbreak of peace in the galaxy.
Yeah,
they've only been dealing with orcs and the fringes, which they haven't really been at all dangerous since Eleanor, and the Eldar are not a threat. Like, nothing has really been much of a threat to the Imperium, and it's been hard to justify the expensive maintenance of the Adeptus Astartes. So anytime they get an opportunity to show their worth, they do it. So that's kind of the politics of what was going on. Speaking of that, our second main location is Terra and the Imperial Palace, which I thought was interesting. I've not read anything that deeply involves the Imperial Palace before. And it looks like things are getting... we're starting to see the kind of tears in the fabric of the Imperium already.
Because politics is getting more and more about personal gain and less about what's best for the Imperium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these sections mainly involve the Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum, Draken Vangerich. The Officio Assassinorum is kind of like the Adeptus Astartes in the 32nd millennium, where it's seen as a bit of an anachronism, not worth using. Like later on, Vangerich is talking to Inquisitor Vanen, and he talks about how he might have to employ the Assassinorum's abilities, and she says, "Oh, don't be so medieval," which I thought was interesting. Like they don't consider that a good What do you mean assassinate people? Don't be ridiculous. We don't do that anymore, right? So, they've gotten to this point where the Senatorium Imperialis doesn't actually meet in their main chamber anymore. They meet in this small kind of observatory room. Yeah. Where they kind of like the High 12 sit around a table and discuss what's going to happen, and then everybody else is allowed to kind of sit against the wall and watch, but not really participate as much.
Yeah, maybe you should just clarify that the Senatorium Imperialis is a gigantic hall that can room 500,000 people.
Yeah,
and try to put 500,000 politicians in a room and try to get something done. They know it doesn't work, so they need to make some kind of decision. So they go into the back room of some tower, and it's just the High Lords of Terra that meet up and decide. And then they have their assistants standing in the back and just like, observe and everything, but we don't really care what you think because this is a boys' club, I guess. Sort of, it's like members only, and what we discuss isn't really for anyone's ears. It's just we agree on stuff, and then stuff happens.
Yeah, Vangerich is not of the High 12. The Assassinorum seat was taken over by the Inquisition, and he's not angry about that. It doesn't really bother him that much, probably because he's perfectly capable of machinating things behind the scenes without an actual seat on the High 12. Vangerich is an interesting character. I like how Dan Abnett goes to great trouble describing his the way he puts on airs. Like when he's walking towards the Senate meeting in the beginning, he stops at a very crude, small chapel to pray. Like he tries to seem pious in the eyes of anybody who's watching, even though he knows there are spies following him wherever he goes. But he's he's kind of upset. Like he talks to Daylight, one of these Imperial Fist wall brethren who defends Daylight Wall. He talks to him and he says, so where are they meeting? And he tells them, up in the chamber. And it upsets him that they don't meet in the actual Senatorium Imperialis location, because he feels like decisions are being made in the dark without public knowledge, and when they do meet, they don't actually they're not efficient. Where I guess the way it used to work is you discuss the issue and then you'd vote on it, right? Instead, in these small groupings, they discuss mundane issues at great length, and only because the issue might benefit one of the High 12. So these mundane administrative issues that shouldn't really that should have been passed on to a lower official to take care of just quickly, instead becomes a major issue because it's a pet project of one of the senators, or sorry, one of the High 12.
One example that is given in one of the books is that organizing transportation of goods within the Imperium has been voted on and is now actually so inefficient it's hurting the Imperium. But the only reason why it was voted through in that way was because it benefits one rogue trader family a lot. So they get power, they get money, and the Imperium as a whole suffers. But who cares?
Yeah. And throughout this, Vangerich and Venin have conversations about how, this is the real threat. Like, they talk about the issue going, they talk about the war on Adamanshore, and Venin at one point, asks for Vangerich's help in a vote in the Senatorum, and they really are. They both understand that the real threat is not the fighting on Adamantur. It's what led to that. It's what led to that. It's the fact that all of this politicking has committed an entire chapter of Space Marines and basically left Terra undefended. Like, how could that possibly happen? Well, it happens because the different members of the Senate can't agree for the good of the Imperium. Instead, they have to worry about what's good for them.
Yeah, it's more about personal agendas.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. Now, eventually, Vangerich realizes he's been played. He actually has helped Venin, who's the Inquisitor on the council, helped her gain a little bit more leverage on the council, and we realize it's been her goal to kind of to have the Inquisition orchestrate things in the council. Now, whether or not that's because the Inquisition believes they're the only ones that can actually, rule justly or rule for the Imperium, doesn't really matter. It's still not kosher, right?
Yep.
It's very interesting. Vangerich kind of likens it to a coup, and I think Venin's a little put off by that, but she's very chill. She's very chill, but Vangerich is so worried that he feels like he needs to start gathering some of his old contacts. And one of the scenes, he goes to meet a former Assassinorum employee who's now called Wire, but was once called Beast Cruel. And he's kind of retired to a different job. He's kind of a file clerk for the Arbites, I guess. Wire is not sure about going back to his old job, but Vangerich tells him beasts arise, and we're like, oh yeah, that's the title of the story. I have a feeling that Beast Cruel is going to feature a lot more in the upcoming books.
Yep.
So as we just discussed, Vangerich and Venin are able to convince the council that reinforcements need to be sent to Adamanshore, and they get a lot.
Yeah. Though there's not a lot of Imperial Fists to send, they still send, I get the impression that it's almost like the 50 last Imperial Fists on Terra.
Yeah, it's just the Wall Brethren left. So at this point, they have committed the entirety of the Imperial Fists, which is always a good idea.
Exactly. Who cares about the gene seed? And, because even 50 Space Marines, they have their limits. So they send 60 Imperial Guard brigades just to hammer it home that we're trying to get this solved.
Mm-hmm.
And these Wall Brethren, they're really happy that they've been sent because Wall Brethren are Space Marines who have done so well that they've been rewarded with this super honorary position of being a Wall Brethren, but it's a glorified guard. It's like an honor guard. So, they would really like to get some combat because that's what they're bred for.
Right. Yeah, they're really excited. Most of these guys, except the only one who's not super excited is this older Space Marine named Zarathustra. He's kind of wary about committing the entire chapter, even though he finally gets to fight. But Daylight is in charge. He's got this laurel painted on his armor, showing that he's in command of the operation. Lord Commander Militant Heth is there in person.
Yeah.
So he kind of took the sails out of the High Admiral. The High Admiral is kind of vying for power, and Heth decides, well, you know what, F you, I'm actually going to go to this thing. I'm going to be there in person and help direct the operation. Yeah. So Heth is there. He's one of the High 12. Admiral Kieran is one of the characters there. He's kind of the proxy for the High Admiral. And Artemantur, when they get there, Artemantur is a disaster area. It is a blister. It is like a hellscape. It's actually got this ring of fire around the equator where it's just torn to pieces. The rest of the planet is roiling in these gravitational storms, which is brutal.
Yeah, and also they're having trouble trying to establish radio contact with anything on the ground, and they realize that the only way to actually figure out what the heck is going on is to send some Stormbirds down to do some scouting and see if they can, maybe it's a radio thing, so they need to send something in to be like a relay or something.
Yeah, like a scout. They don't want to. It's really interesting. Like Heth says, well, we have to drop, right? And he says, well, wait a minute, sorry. I kind of jumped the gun there. We have to let our actual field commander give the order, and which is interesting. He's one of the High 12, but he does respect Daylight's position as the field commander for this mission.
Yeah,
and Daylight had actually pulled 6 Stormbirds out of mothballs to use in this battle, to bring the Wall Brethren down on the planet, which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Dan Abnett goes into description of they look like swung back wing. They look like Aquillas flying through the sky, which is really cool. Anyways, it takes them 6 weeks to get there. So whatever's on this planet has been there for 6 weeks, trying to survive. And they're very concerned about their battle brothers who they can't contact. So they send the Stormbirds down filled with all the Wall Brethren and the Imperial Guardsmen. They're called Asmodai. I guess they're from the Pan-Pacific region of Earth, and they're supposed to be they're kind of the best Imperial Guard that they could find. They're well trained. And highly elite humans, so that should be quite a boon, even though they're simple humans.
And the landscape down there, it's just lava geysers and everything.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Oh, sorry.
That's a really good point, Snorre. You just called them geysers, right? And then when the narrator was reading the book, he called them geezers. and I pronounce it geysers, so we're gonna have all the pronunciations for that right now. Do we want to come up with any others?
Well, if you go to Iceland, I'm pretty sure that you will hear geyser, and I'm pretty sure that Same thing goes if you go to Yellowstone. I'm pretty sure they're going to call it geysers.
I did geezers. Like, really? Geezers? Yeah, this place
You're
is
a strange geezer.
Yeah, this place is a disaster. He actually, like, the character Daylight actually refers to it as Dante's Inferno. Like, he refers to the scenes he's seeing as, like, from wall depictions in the Imperial Palace.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool. They lose like 3 of the Stormbirds in the drop, and then like 2 you don't hear from them for the entire book. You only follow the 1. So I'm wondering if 2 of those Stormbirds are going to feature in some upcoming novels. Maybe that's kind of something we haven't seen yet, because we don't really get any of those. At least Dan Abnett doesn't specifically say that any of the survivors from those 2 lost Stormbirds meet up with the group at any point. So
yeah,
I wonder if they're still on the planet.
it would kind of make sense that they don't send 6 Stormbirds to scout out one area. So they're probably down there at some other place trying to figure out what's going on there.
Right. Yeah. Well, during the drop, they were kind of tightly formation. It's just they got lost. One of them nosedived into the ground and everybody died. One exploded in the air. Another one, I forgot what happened to the other one, but there are 3 that could have survived, and we only follow 1. So we'll see. We'll see about that. So yeah, the sound bursts are really messing up the IG. It's not very great for the Space Marines either, but the IG are really not liking it. And it seems to physically hurt them.
Yeah.
Kind of. When the ship crashes, some of the crew have to be so the crew and some of the IG have to be executed because, or not. Well, I wouldn't call it executed, just like kind of euthanized by the Space Marines. They twist their necks. They twist their heads until their necks break. Basically, they don't like. It doesn't say they don't like having to do it, but they can't have them kind of bogging them down while they're walking around down on the planet.
Yeah. And of course, since people are on the ground again, suddenly chromes come out of the ground and we have another fight.
Yes.
So, despite everything, the chromes are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing. That as much as this gravity is messing up all the humans, the chromes at least seem to take it rather well. Even though they're kind of pissed off because the noise they don't like that either.
No, they seem to come out of the ground and attack. And I'm wondering if, knowing what we know now, and everybody's read the book, so there's no need for obfuscation here. I wonder if the chromes are like, who's causing all this terrible stuff to happen? It's probably these guys. Let's kill them. I mean, not that Tyranids or I guess these chromes need an excuse to kill things that are near their nest, but I think that they're desperately trying to defend their nest. Like sometimes some of the black ones come out, like they seem to be mixed with the silver ones. I really think that they think that the Space Marines are responsible for what's happening.
Yep.
And just like before, I wonder if it's just chromes on the planet right now. I wonder if those other Stormbirds, that could be the excuse we have for not completely destroying the chapter. Someone has to live, right?
Yep.
I mean, seriously, in 40K we have an Imperial Fist chapter, right?
Yep.
So they have to come from somewhere. So hopefully we'll get some stories with them later. But in the meantime, the group from the crashed Stormbird, Daylight's unit, is kind of saved by a group of Imperial Fists coming up over the ridge, blasting chromes with their rotary cannons. Yay! These are from, I forgot the name of the wall they're from, but they teleported from the ship with Chapter Master Miron before the fleet was overcome by the gravity fluctuations.
And the gravity fluctuations are also making time flow differently, so that almost makes
really
this sound like a warp thing.
It really does, yeah. And like gravity and time do have kind of they are kind of pals in a way, and it makes total sense.
In the space-time continuum.
Yeah, the commander of the group is called Severance, and he at first Daylight likes this guy. He's like, it's so great that they both had the same thought to come to this location to find the original fists who came down to the planet. But then the guy starts talking weird. He starts saying, "Well, there's a moon in the sky," and Daylight's like, "There's no moon here. This planet doesn't have a moon." He's like, "Oh, really?" And he points to the lake, and Daylight can actually see the reflection of a dark moon in the lake, even though there's no moon in the sky.
Ooh, dun,
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 dun, dun.
I think we've been podcasting a little bit too much together.
Yeah,
That's now even I've picked up that one.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, Snorri, why don't we take a break here?
Yeah.
And hit the restroom, hit some commercials, and we'll be back to finish up our discussion on I Am Slaughter.
Yep.
Do you play more than one mini war game? Or do you like listening to shows which discuss other games and pan hobby topics? Combat Phase is a weekly podcast covering the whole hobby for gamers. We also interview a lot of Black Library authors. Join Kenny and Robert as they try to grow the hobby. Combat Phase, the best part of the game, is on iTunes and www.combatphase.com.
Welcome back. We're going to continue our conversation about I Am Slaughter. Now, it is interesting that anybody who's been involved in this fight kind of slowly starts to get the impression that the communication is organic in nature, and there are words in the voices, and this really starts to really make itself known when the fleet in orbit detects a kind of a shadow, a ghost, on their sensors.
And also, it's getting clear that this voice thing, this noise, isn't coming from the chromes. There's something else going on here.
Yeah, everybody really starts to get the impression that the chromes are not the source of this communication. And so this shadow, they investigated a little bit further, and it turns out it is Aquilinia's ship, which starts rising out of the clouds and distortions near the planet. The ship is a mess.
Yeah.
It is leaking drive plasma.
Yeah, just to clarify the whole shadow thing, we're talking about the Aquilinea who everyone thought had crashed on the planet when it was attacked or something, and suddenly the drive was compromised, and the ship was venting gas or air and everything because there are holes in the side of it, even though it wasn't shot at.
Yeah.
So yeah,
she's a mess, and her whole crew is a mess. They are very, like, when Heth insists on sending over Medicaid crews, and she says straight up, no. You will. Anybody who comes here is going to die.
Yeah.
The radiation is that bad. But she's kept herself and her ship alive just long enough to give the any reinforcements information about what happened.
Yep.
So she sends as much information as she has to the fleet, and again she mentions that the voices are not the Chromes. It's something else. And she also mentions that there's the moon, which has recently appeared, and some of Karen is the admiral in charge. Some of his men don't really believe her because there's no moon, no natural moon of the planet, and the sensor echo that she, like the gravitational anomaly she provides information about, is he doesn't see it as anything more than that, just an anomaly. And Kieran really, he's a lot more thorough. He seems like a pretty good admiral, actually. Like he's not like his counterpart in the Council of 12. Really, he seems like somebody who likes to get things done, and also Heth seems to believe the captain as well, because he actually, what the quote is awesome. He says, "I've seen demons up close. Don't tell me about the physical rules of the universe."
Yeah.
So, given that information, they're all kind of scared of the idea of any force that can move a planet. Like, if they can move a planet, what else can they do?
Yeah, and
where could they do it? They could do it anywhere.
Yeah, and well, it's not just like warp things that can do this. We know now that the Grey Knights just, they moved an entire planet into the warp because, why not?
Yeah, it's just a thing we do now.
So it's not like limited to evil warp entities or maybe some other, strange things.
Anybody who can move a planet is dangerous, especially because you can put as much as you can put as many dudes as you want on a planet and create quite the attack force. Now, on the planet we get the meeting between Daylight and Algerin brings Daylight to meet Slaughter and Laurentis, and we kind of have the team together now, right? And this is where we continue the discussion about what this threat really is. And this is really the most significant part of the book, I think, because it really goes into kind of this discussion about what is really going on with the Chromes. The idea is that they are exactly as Laurentis described in the beginning, but the consequences are very different than they had originally thought. In that the Chromes are like rats trapped in a burning building.
Yep.
And they but the building is like these it is the warp, right? They're kind of they kind of come to planets at the head of some other force, and this new enemy, which we now know to be the orcs, has created these kind of tunnels. They're able to generate these tunnels through the warp, and they're pushing the Chromes out into the real space. And that's why they're collected at this point, because they're kind of being herded through the warp onto the world, and it's very agitating to them. Like they're afraid of the noises, because that's the sound of being driven through these tunnels onto the planet. So
I like that concept. It's like a sheep herder's flute or whistle. I mean, so of course they're going to be pissed off that there's like, oh no, do we have to move again?
Right. And so Laurentis is just still lamenting. He's like, well, I wish I had some kind of cogitator unit I could actually translate this language. And that's when Daylight presents him with their damaged tech servitor, which Laurentis is able to use as kind of, because it's interesting. They actually, the way their technology works is their translators have to go through a physical human brain to like kind of do the translation.
Yeah,
which I thought was an interesting point.
Yeah, because artificial intelligence is banned, so they can't really use analytical computer programs to do this. They have to actually get a human brain to analyze this.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
And the only translation is like the servitor actually like says it in a deep voice. I am Slaughter. Like he actually tries to mimic the voice that's communicating this, and
I think that was a really fun thing to actually throw in there, that whoever is sending this noise is saying I am Slaughter, because that is exactly what the Imperial Fist captain said in the beginning of the book. I am Slaughter.
Yeah,
he says it. Yeah, he says it as a statement of this is my name. And this guy says, I am Slaughter, because he's an orc and he's out there to slaughter. So,
and I love it. I learned just like, oh man, it didn't work. He's just repeating what you said. And Slaughter's like, I never met this guy, so.
Yeah, it's a really interesting part of the book, if you ask me, because suddenly it's repeating itself, only it's been turned upside down.
Right. Yeah. No, that was really cool. And to make a long story short, this anomaly, when it appears in the sky, is so awesome and so stupid and so orky. I love it. I love it. It is so great. This freaking giant face in the sky, a giant robot face that is controlled by the facial it's actually connected to the war boss's face. So when the war boss talks, so does the moon. And it's not even a moon, it's just the end of the aperture, which is also an interesting thing. It's not even like they didn't transport a moon. It's like this long tunnel that's reaching across the galaxy, and like this is just its face. Like, can you imagine the actual the undertaking of building such a thing, Snorri? It is insanity.
Yeah, but then again, it's orcs, so as insane as it might seem to us, to orcs, they just, hey, let's put a face on the moon and make a jaw that can move in sync with the war boss, and, it just works. Forget the physics of moving a moon-sized jaw to make this animation, to make this animate. It just works because they're orcs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, spaceships start flying out of its mouth and whatnot, and all kinds of ports open up. It's shooting guns. Oh, how about the fact that it starts like eating the planet, and then it's like Unicron from Transformers. It uses the planetary mass to power it a little bit, but it also uses pieces of the planet and shoots them at the fleet. Like, so the fleet is getting hit by Mach 5 meteors, like dying in droves. How do you even fight that?
Yeah, I know.
How?
It is so just orky. It's amazing. It's rock. It's an orc rock taken to the next level.
Have you ever played Star Fox, Snorri?
No.
In Star Fox, I think there's something very similar. In the old Star Fox, there's a similar kind of thing where it's like this kind of face at the end of a long tunnel, I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, that's something for folks to think about. Go ahead and look that up if you're interested. It's something very similar, but I thought this was a really unique. It's not just a Death Star, right? It's not just the same old. It's not Unicron. It's something just different enough and orky enough that it's very unique and very fun and terrifying because what is the Imperium going to do to defeat this threat? Like,
Yeah.
you have multiple threats here, right? You have the orcs, which, they have to be taken care of. You have the disappearing of what seems to be the Imperial Fists just gone, right? Like you get the impression that they've been destroyed. Now, even though Daylight and what's his name?
Slaughter?
No. Well, anyway, even though Daylight, everybody but Slaughter, they die because Daylight and his companions kind of defend the entrance to the cave where Laurentis is working, and they are completely overwhelmed by the orcs. At the end, we have this really kind of fun moment at the end of the book where Slaughter happens upon Laurentis, who's been stabbed by an orc. Slaughter kills the orc, and he's like, and Slaughter says, "So it's just us?" And Laurentis says, "Well, just you, really." He's kind of making a joke about he's going to die soon.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really
But then
interesting.
again, what was it? The Biologus that's a part of the Mechanicum, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And
So-
he's very human. I thought he was a really interesting character, Snorre.
Yeah.
Like he said he never elected to get implants and stuff. Like he's really just kind of a zoologist, really.
Yeah, but still, he is part of the Mechanicum, so I think that he probably has a lot of the mindset that it's more of a calculation to die, not so much a physical event.
Right. Yeah, and and it was really as the admiral was able to communicate all the information back to Terra. He commended Laurentis and the rest of the rest of the fleet and everybody on the planet, because they really did. They knew at some point they could not flee. There was no running away from these thousands of orc ships coming at them.
Yeah.
They'd never make it. They'd never make it to the jump point, and they just fought as hard as they could, just to give the lead ship time to send the information back to Terra.
Yep.
The author doesn't actually show Slaughter being killed, so it could be that he returns later in this series. It would be interesting. So, Snorre, do you think that the kind of the tunnel here, like the face is... I kind of think the face is attached to the tunnel. I don't think it can fly anywhere. But from this point, which is 16 weeks away from Earth, any orc ships can pass through it and come in through this area. This is kind of a staging ground for the orcs now, right?
Yeah, but the way I got an impression I got here was that the orc has a massive teleportarium inside it, so they can sort of open a warp rift and move half the moon to the other side. So make a plane through the moon, make half the moon appear on the other side of the warp tunnel, open up, send these ships out, and then they can just close down the teleport tunnel thing.
Yeah.
So that
and then
it's
go
basically
somewhere else, right?
Yeah, exactly, because the moon doesn't actually move. They just transport half of it to another place and kick ass, and then withdraw, and then find another place they can attack.
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of get the impression that it might be a permanent thing, though. I don't know. We'll have to read the second book to find out what the actual true nature of this is. I think it is possible this might be its permanent location, but I could be wrong. There's no way of telling that just by reading this one book. So
Yeah,
that's
well-
interesting. That'll be conjecture, but it would be interesting. And I bet this is as far as it can go, though. I don't think it can get much closer to Terra unless see, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
It's interesting. Moving on to Terra, Heth's communique comes in. The 12 are not going to share the information with anyone.
yeah, because that would be just mass panic, and no one would be helped by knowing this.
Right.
That's the conclusion they draw.
Of course, the Inquisitor Venan does intercept the communication, and this is where it's absolutely revealed that the Inquisition's main goal here, they knew something, and Vangerich knew they knew something, but Venan never revealed what it was, and neither does the author. Like, we don't know how much Venan knew about what was about to happen, but she is definitely using the situation as a way of gaining more power for the Inquisition to affect policy in the Imperium. And that is really interesting, considering what we know now about the Inquisition.
Yep.
Fortunately, also Vangerich is watching. Probably he has installed some kind of listening device or a recording device in Venan's quarters.
Yeah, that part of the audiobook, I had to go back and re-listen to it to make sure there wasn't something wrong with the audiobook, because the same scene is replayed 3 times. Once when it happens, once when Venan is monitoring what's happening, and once when Vangerich is monitoring Venan monitoring what's happening. It's like the exact same thing happens 3 times. Like, I heard this just now. I was like, oh wait, there's some minor differences here. And then at the end, and Venus just turns off the screen. It's like, oh. So there would actually help to have read the book itself.
Yeah, and it's funny. We're not surprised that Vangerich was able to put a recording device in Venan's quarters either.
Yeah, they have this thing going back and forth through the book where he's actually in Venan's quarters a few times, and Venan...
She's surprised.
Yeah.
Whoa!
And also Venan has a bodyguard, and he's like, yeah, by the way, that bodyguard of yours needs some more training because he's hiding behind that bookcase thing or something like that. It's like, how do you see that? Vangerich just goes, yeah, your bodyguard just, there's a bit of a shadow there, and I can see these little things that, the instant he comes into the room, he sees these things because it's what he does himself. So he's got a bit of a thing going on, just annoying Venan by saying, it's like, yeah, as sneaky as you're trying to be, I can spot you from like a mile away.
I can out-sneaky you any day of the week, lady.
Yeah, and the proof is really that he has put some kind of surveillance device in her quarters, and she obviously doesn't know.
No. He knows everything that's going on. And interesting, he says to himself this one quote. I want to use it here. He says, "Beasts arise, and as they arise, so must they fall." And he's not really talking about the threat on Artamantur, right? He's talking about the Inquisition. He's talking about the Officio Assassinorum, and I think he's trying to work out a way to bring back, kind of reinvigorate the Officio Assassinorum, because he thinks that that's the duty of the Assassinorum, is to, when all else fails and officials in the Imperium cannot be trusted to do their job and they've grown too powerful to remove, that is when it's the Assassinorum's job to take care of the problem. And he thinks they've reached that point.
Yep.
And he's very concerned about what the Inquisition is doing, but they're a very powerful enemy and almost as sneaky as he is, so he has to be very careful.
Yep.
So, and the book kind of ends with this little vignette of Cruel, which is Vangerich's kind of one of the old employees of the Assassinorum, right?
Yeah.
That was a cool scene.
Oh, yeah. So the Venan sends her bodyguard, Calthro, to assassinate Cruel to kill Cruel, because she realizes that Cruel has been activated as an assassin, and that's gonna be dangerous for her. So Calthro sits at his desk and gets a Vox communication and goes all weird and suddenly announces that I'm feeling a bit sick, so I'm gonna have to go, and waits a couple hours for his replacement to come, and then just, sneaks off and goes down to a sort of a train station or a subway station.
Yeah, you assume he's just going to get on the train, right?
Yeah,
but he doesn't. He goes into the basements.
Yeah, and Cruel is of course trailing Calthro because Cruel probably realized that either Calthro is going to be a problem later, or we just need to take him out now to send a message. And Calthro, like Adam said, Calthro goes into the basement and tries to lure Cruel because Calthro also knows that he's being followed. And, one person is trying to outmaneuver another person, and as professional as Calthro is, Cruel has done this for so long, he knows all the tricks. And I would like to say there's a bit of a fight, but it's not really much of a fight, because Cruel basically just touches some bones, and they just break, disintegrate or something. And, Calthro doesn't really stand much of a chance. And Cruel does this weird thing. I'm thinking of Vibro Glove or something, because Cruel just punches Calthro in the face. And his fist comes out the other side of the cranium. It's like clean through. And, of course, that's the end of Calthro.
So good. Yeah, and Cruel, he's not stupid, right? Like, he's not just this beast. He's called Beast Cruel, but he's not. He is a highly trained officio assassinorum official. Like the way he gets Calthro is he gets a bum to walk down like the causeway wearing his jacket. Calthro kills the bum, and then when he realizes it was not Cruel is when Cruel gets the jump on him. So it's really cool how this character, I'm sure we're just going to see more of this character in the future, especially considering his name. Like, this is, he's going to be the agent that follows Vangerich's orders throughout the series. I think he's going to be a main character as we go forward.
Yeah. And as brutal as Cruel might seem, he's definitely not an Averser assassin.
No,
he might be a predecessor of the Averser assassin type, but Averser assassins, they are mindless. Well, not exactly mindless, but they're brutal killing machines that have to be kept on ice until.
Oh yeah, they're serial killers who are in the employ of the Imperium. That's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
Well, they do weird shit with the bodies.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like
they are Averser assassins are the terror tool of the Assassinorum, and this guy is like, his assassination method reminds me of an Averser assassin minus the combat drugs and the psychosis.
Right, and don't forget, like, the Assassinorum doesn't have just, like, those specialized assassins. They just have regular dudes, too. Like, They just have normal people who assassinate people. You don't have to pump somebody with combat drugs and put them on the battlefield. Like, sometimes you just need a really smart person to sneak into someone's bedroom and poison them. So there's lots of different kinds of assassins. So I think Cruel is going to be an interesting character going forward. So we have him. We have Slaughter, who we think might still be around as part of the cast of characters, but that's about it. We have Venan and Vangerich, obviously, who are going to continue on. Vangerich is actually, one thing we forgot to mention. Vangerich is actually trying to get some allies himself. He actually goes to the High Admiral of the 12. During like a huge speech that he gives in front of the Navy, and he's trying to make him an ally. So as much as Vangarich hates the politics, he's engaging in it quite a bit. So I didn't really mind those sections. You don't like the politics stuff, Snorri?
No, I thought it was really great because it really shows the whole corruptness of the Imperium, even at this stage. And we know now that the Imperium is completely rotten, politically at least, because it's all about personal gain, or, well, not all, but it's a lot about personal gain over the good of the entire Imperium.
Yeah, and even the people who are trying to improve things still have to play that game.
Yeah.
And like Vangarich, like he's trying to gain favor and everything like that. He still has to be part of the problem in order to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
I really think that maybe this is really what kind of the main point of this series is going to be, is showing the beginning of the downfall of the Imperium. Like, this is where the slide towards the end times begins.
Yeah.
And I really like that exposition. It's not really... I mean, yeah, orcs. Rah! Orcs are fun. Yay, we have torpedoes that hit the ground and dudes come out, and I really want that in my games. But I think for, like, in reality, showing the beginning of the end of the Imperium is probably going to be the most interesting part of this series.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe time will tell. I'm not sure. I'd like to do more of these books for the show, but I'm not sure if we want to do 12 shows on The Beast Arises. So
That might be something we can do over a couple of years. Oh, speaking of which, we have our 2nd anniversary coming up in a few shows. Oh my god!
Yeah, we're still plugging along. People still seem to like the show.
Yeah.
People were really looking forward to this episode. I hope we don't disappoint them.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Stay tuned. We just have one mission for the On Your Tabletop section, but I think you're gonna like it. We'll be right back.
Yep.
In the Lincoln, UK area and looking for a game club? Head down to Gobsticks. We are a long-established game club that meets every Thursday from 6 to 10. Fancy staking your claim to the Xanatos system and discovering ancient Mechanicus tech in our 40k narrative campaign? Or taking your Blood Bowl team to glory in the Gob Stick-Up? We play 40k fantasy, Blood Bowl, War Machine, Hordes, Malifaux, a wide variety of role-playing games and more. For more information, including how to find us and to speak to our members, head over to Facebook and search for Gobsticks, GOBSTYKS, or head to gobsticks.co.uk.
So for the On Your Tabletop this week, we just have one mission, and it's called Bulwark Against the Wave. Now, I know that this book really didn't have very distinctive fight scenes in it, did it, Snorri? Like, it was very... all the fight scenes were rather generic, and I don't think it would be helpful to just try to recreate every battle in the mission.
No. Not really.
Every battle in the book. Yeah, no. And it's not to say that the battles weren't fun. They were super fun. It's just I don't think they would make for very interesting missions. So, all right. So the interesting thing about this mission is the forces. Really, for the defenders, we have an elite group of heroes and their support staff. You can contain only one model per 50 points used in your game. So a very elite group of models. For example, the defender's army can only boast 40 models in a 2,000 point game. 2,000 divided by 50.
So really, we're aiming for like Vanguard, Stern Guard, and Terminators then.
Yeah, pretty much. And if you're going like Eldar, you're gonna have a lot of maybe Wraith Guard or like Psychers and stuff. You're gonna have a very elite unit or a very elite force here. Now the attackers are the exact opposite. They're an implacable horde. So instead of creating a proper list before the game begins, you don't create if you're playing a 2,000 point game, you don't create a 2,000 point list. Instead, you assign pre-generated units to cards on a normal deck of playing cards. You pre-create these units and assign them to cards. You're encouraged. It'd be a lot easier if you just bought a deck of playing cards for like $1, and you actually write the unit and its upgrades right on the card. It's just easier that way. Each suit can have a different unit. So if you have the Queen of Hearts, you can put a unit on that, and then if you have a Queen of Spades, you can have a totally different unit on the Queen of Spades. Unique units and unique Warby gear can only appear once in your deck. So if you have the Teeth of Terra, for example, you can only have it on one of your cards. At the start of the game, the attacker draws one card for every 200 points used in the game. So if you're playing a 2,000-point game, you'll draw 10 cards. And you'll use the table we have in here to determine the nature of the unit drawn from the deck. And they're just deployed normally. Don't reshuffle all the cards into the deck. You'll never reshuffle the cards back into the deck.
Yeah.
That helps, like, if you only have, like, one Morkanaut. You wouldn't want to shuffle that back in if it's still on the table.
Yep.
Snorre, do you want to give us, what you want to tell us what each of the cards, what kind of units you put on each of the cards?
So at the top of the deck, we have the Ace. And the Ace is an elite slot with 180 points or less. If you draw a Deuce, then you're looking at a troop choice of 100 points or less, and there's no heavy weapons unless they are mounted on transports. A 3 to 7 gives you another troop slot for 150 points or less, and again, no heavy weapons except mounted on transports. If you draw an 8 or a 9, you get another troop slot for 260 points or less. A minimum of 10 models and no heavy weapons except mounted on transports. If you draw a 10, then you get a fast attack for 150 points or less. If you draw the Jack, then it's Surge! All of the attacker's unengaged units on the battlefield may immediately move d6 inches, and this movement does not count against any further movement, shooting, or assault in this turn. If this card is drawn before deployment, discard it and draw 2 additional cards instead.
Right, yeah. If you're trying to get an idea of what your army is starting with, that card isn't very helpful, but it causes you to have an extra unit in your army, so that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just an extra unit that just happened to show up a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you draw the Queen, then you get an HQ slot for 105 points or less. And if you get the King, then it's an HQ slot again, but 205 points or less this time. And of course, there is one joker in the deck, and that's Into the Fire. The defender immediately takes an additional free shooting phase. If this card is drawn before the deployment, simply discard it. This can cause you to start the game with less units deployed. So, the defender he has a joker up his sleeve, but potentially also he may suffer for it.
No, it's actually the attacker who starts the game with one less unit. So that card is always good for the defender. So that's cool. Like, as far as the forces are concerned, Snorri, I think I could see you using your renegades as either the attacker or the defender in your games.
I can see making slots for just about everything here. Elites, I can probably get some Ogrins in there.
Mm-hmm.
If the HQ should probably not be too hard to fill for even a 205 points. And, everything else, there's tons of troops in the Renegades, and probably some fast attack that I can use too.
Right. You'll notice there's no heavy support in here. It just doesn't make much sense for this kind of paradigm. I could definitely, clearly orcs, right? Orcs and Tyranids, which is really what this is designed for this game, because you're just always flooded. You could do some small games against the Tyranids, against the Chromes. And then later on you can do some orc battles. For my part, I mean, I could see dedicated transports being useful here because you don't have the heavy support. If you do have heavy support, it's probably going to be to bring your dudes on the table. So for orcs, use some knobs with a battle wagon or whatever, some boys and trucks, that sort of thing. I haven't tried this one yet, but I am dying to. I really want to give this a try, get some play testing in. Anyways, do you want to go over the battlefield layout?
Yeah. The terrain should be set up to allow for reasonable fields of fire against an oncoming foe. Very large line-of-sight blocking terrain is discouraged in this mission, though smaller line-of-sight blockers here and there should be fine. And it would be good to allow elite units to move from cover to cover. So,
right,
have fun.
Yeah.
The deployment type is Dawn of War, and the placing of objectives would be that the attacker places 3 objectives exactly 24 inches from their table edge. Then the defending player places 3 more objectives wherever he feels like, and objectives must be placed using the normal distance restrictions.
Right on. So it really favors objective placement. Fairly favors the defender, but it kind of has to, the way the mission is kind of set up.
Yeah.
For mission rules, we have variable game length, mysterious objectives, reserves, and night fighting. We also have, obviously, a bunch of special rules. Never-ending horde. Starting on turn 2, the attacker rolls D3 at the start of their turn before reserves arrive. When they do, they must draw a number of cards from their deck equal to the die result. Do not reshuffle the cards into the deck. The units on those cards immediately arrive as if from reserve. For each unit with the deep strike or outflank special rules, you may roll a die. On a 4+, the attacker may use their special rules to bring them into the fight. Otherwise, they march on from the attacker's table edge. So basically, you get a D3 more units from your deck every turn. I don't think this is too overwhelming. You're starting off with quite a bit less as far as points are concerned, and you're going to be playing catch up the first few turns, and then later on it starts actually mattering. But at that point, I think shooting from the other side of the table is going to keep it fairly even. Yeah. The next special rule is you can't take it with you. When the defender reveals a mysterious objective, they may re-roll the result. Pyrrhic victory. The defender does not automatically lose the game if they are wiped out. The game does, however, end at the end of the game turn in which the defenders were wiped out. Count victory points as normal. So basically, normally you just get all the victory points if you wipe out your opponent. In this game, you do not do that. If the defender loses all their models, well, they held their ground long enough. If they have more victory points than the attacker at that point, then they still win the game. Hold the line. When a defender's unit is within 6 inches of an objective, they either benefit from feel no pain or improve their feel no pain by 1. So that shows their tenacity and their stick-to-itiveness. The fact that they understand that this is a last-ditch effort and they can't afford to fall to light weapons fire or to a simple blade to the throat.
Stick-to-itiveness.
Stick-to-itiveness. It's
I like that.
I guess it must be an American phrase. It's kind of silly, but
Merriam-Webster, please note.
Yeah, we love making things into adjectives and adverbs, ridiculous things.
Okay, so the final point here is the victory conditions, and players get 1 victory point for each objective they hold at the end of each of their game turn. Players also score 1 point for each enemy unit they kill. The attacking player scores 3 additional victory points if they wipe out the enemy. The defending player scores 3 additional victory points if any of their units are alive and not fleeing at the end of the game.
Yep. So there's a very much a component to this that naturally leads you to like want to have some kind of victory conditions for having anything left at the end of the game for the defender, because they're they're definitely going to be outnumbered by the end of the game. And hopefully, like the way they're kind of every turn they hold objectives, the more points they get. So this shows that the longer they hold out, the more successful they are going to be. But if the enemy does wipe them out, then they should get a few extra victory points to kind of make up for it, to show that they have succeeded in destroying the defenders, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is fairly balanced, but it really does need to be played to see if it really works. I'm not sure if it would be a good idea to have like Tau as the attacker, unless you're running a bunch of Kroot.
Yeah.
There are some things that just don't make much sense, because they'll be very elite, and any game. So let's just put it this way: if you're running this mission and the attacker comes on the field and just stands on the other side of the battlefield shooting at the defender, that's not in the spirit of the game. The spirit of this mission is to get up close and get engaged.
Yep.
The defender, on the other hand, yes, I definitely recommend sitting on the other side of the battlefield and letting the attacker come at you. Okay, well, that's I guess, like I said before, that we had a short on your tabletop this episode. We're gonna listen to some commercials, and we'll be right back.
This is Rob Sanders, and you're listening to the Masters of the Forge, where the world of 40k comes to life on your tabletop.
Interested in the offbeat world of 40k?
girlfriend
Is your
interaction
bits
here.
box full of
Snorre,
20-year-old
I need to put my
space
shirt
elves?
on. Don't talk
Have
to
you
other
ever
people.
searched for something out of production 40k on eBay? Well, hold on to your zotes and head over to Corsair Radio. It covers the full scope of the hobby, homebrew rules, fluff, campaigns, oddball models, and more. From Terra to the Eye of Terror, visit us at corsairradio.blogspot.com. That's corsairradio.blogspot.com.
And with that, I think it's time to say farewell. It's been a fun show, and hopefully you enjoyed it. There will be another 14 days until the next show is released, and Adam, I think we have some plans for that one? Or are we just winging it like always?
Well, both. We have plans that we're winging.
Okay. So,
we're doing Cities of Death, but I think we're going to make it a big portion of it is going to be like the hobby side of Cities of Death.
Yeah.
So we'll have some info on Hive Cities, but a lot of people already know about Hive Cities, so that'll be a short segment. We'll talk about the missions from the recent Cities of Death release and some of the Maelstrom cards, but we're also going to talk about the hobby side of Cities of Death, and hopefully we'll have some guests on to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that this week is going to be full of all kinds of interviews and stuff to talk about, building terrain and building tabletops and stuff. So hopefully that'll be a lot of fun.
yeah, and of course, we're expecting to completely violate our no commercial product placement advertising promise and just, secure ourselves a load of really cool merchandise for us to play with. Not
Right?
Yeah, let's not do that.
We'll have all the we're gonna have all the competitors on to talk about all of their stuff, and then take all their.
We have to. Just scratch what I said.
All right. So yeah. First, another thing I wanted to say. I wanted to thank our listeners for being so awesome. We're officially 5th on the list of the search for the phrase 40K in iTunes.
Yay!
We are appearing on. We are above the fold, as it were, appearing as one of the first podcasts that you see when you search for 40K, and I think that our listeners have everything to do with that. And I want to say thank you, but please keep on giving us those iTunes reviews. Please continue to do that. It's really important that that's important for stroking our ego so that we can get more listeners listening to our show.
Yeah. And of course, we do have a Facebook page where we try to interact with our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we also have a blog where you can find all the cool supplements that we come up with, and that's at mastersoftheforge.com.
And I'm pretty sure Adam still maintains a Twitter account at, what is it? At Masters of Forge?
Yep. Or you can just search for Masters of the Forge.
Yeah. So, there you can see my involvement level in this Twitter account. I don't even remember what the @ sign is. So,
also, once again, one last thing. Please do remember to update your podcast feeds for the Overlords and for Forge the Narrative, our friendly friends over in podcast land. If you want to still listen to those podcasts, which you should want to, because they're great podcasts.
Yeah, Adam, I'm using an app called Pocket Casts on my Android phone, and when I search for independent characters and also the Overlords, I still get the old URLs, so I actually need to manually enter the URL for those.
Cool. Yeah. It's pretty. They've both had some issues with hosting, and I think they're both on in a good place right now. But everybody needs to update their feeds.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think we're good to go, eh, bud?
Yep. I think we're ready to say play the game the way you want to.
Hell yeah.
This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. The music used in this podcast was made by Podod of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission. One click.
We were so in sync just then.
Yeah.
We were like, everybody, yeah. Oh wait, that's Backstreet Boys. Whatever. Yeah, I like.
You disgust me, So, 2 minutes of mindless conversation. Let's get into this.
All right.
1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, yes, I was synchronized with you perfectly there. So even though
really,
I heard my own voice. It's like I say 1, and I heard 1 in the other end. So
1, 2. Yeah.
Hello.
All right. Well, I'm sure. Hello.
Are you there?
Okay.
And it still allows elite moonits. There we go. Players get 1 victory point for each object. Players get.
It's such a good feeling to play games your way. It's such a happy feeling 40K'ing away. And when you throw dice with story in mind, it's such a wonderful way to unwind. It's a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that we'll be back when the fortnight's new, and we'll have new ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. We will too.